Hey everybody, welcome to BrickVault. Today is another LEGO Top 10 Mocks of the Week where I show you guys the coolest custom creations I happen to see people building in LEGO throughout this last week. As always, there's way more than 10 creations I'm going to be showing you guys, and links to everyone in this episode is in the description below. I highly recommend you check out the original Flickr pages of these LEGO designers. This week, the custom build that went up in our web store is a series of nanoscale ships that actually scale perfectly with the Eviscerator Star Destroyer from 2 Impaired. He knocked out a bunch of other Star Wars ships that flesh out a pretty complete fleet and battle scene, if you like, with wonderful tiny little details that I think you can appreciate if you take a closer look. Check us out at www.brickvault.toys if you'd like to get the instructions. You can click that link in the description below. And now let's see the top 10 mocks of the week. Starting from Letranger Absurde, we have Captain SlyOwl's Hideout. It's a small pirate vignette, and it's got all the classic things that I think you might want to see in a small pirate build. There's a half front of a pirate ship, a skull-shaped rock, like always, tons of treasure and jewels that it looks like nobody's been able to survive long enough to claim. And personally, the details that stuck out to me that I liked so much is the way he made those torn and tattered sails that hang on to the top. Most of those are minifigure accessory pieces when you look closely, and because it's all uniform white, it just feels like torn and tattered sails. There's a few more pieces that make up the breaking white water along the shore, and I don't know what those yellow minifigure hands are supposed to be as details below the parrot, but it makes me suspect the bird. Moving down the list is actually a series of different builds, but I first clicked over on these A10 Warthogs from the designer Ski 907. This is a modification to JK Brickworks' Pursuit of Flight build, and he's got 2 different banking Warthogs that are flying over the clouds, top canopy. Frankly, I haven't seen this particular plane look so good at this relatively small micro scale, and I'd say the A10 is probably one of the more popular builds done in LEGO, though there are a few that I think really managed to knock the design out. And at this size, for sure the A10 definitely works here. He did a ton of other planes, all Pursuit of Flight modifications. A lot of them are really fun. And now we're going to jump over to a build called Bricks and Blooms, almost at 10,000 votes. So this is a set that is currently being voted on in LEGO Ideas if you wanted to show some support, and the designer is Bricked 1980. Personally, we're big fans of the Creator modular line, and this colorful and quaint series of shops I think would fit in very well within a modular city. He's got a fully fleshed out interior, of course, to a lot of the rooms, but frankly, I just love the way this thing looks from the outside, especially when you turn the buildings around. There is quite a lot of space in the back, and it feels almost just as complete, which is something that often isn't the case when it comes to modular creator sets like this. I'm still unsure if LEGO would add an Ideas modular creator style set, even if it does get those 10,000 votes. It does look like this one is going to be making it along the way, but I guess we will just have to wait and see. So this is definitely going to get voted through, and personally, I think it is one of the better modular creator sets that's come through the Ideas line. Now we're jumping to a very different stylistic build. John Moffatt has created the Arcanine or Arkanin Type 21 Hypervelocity cannon. Makes sense. The cannon is very long, and it gets increasingly thin as you move down the line, and I like the inclusion of that flexi tube at the bottom. It kind of looks like a stabilizing rod that keeps the cannon a little bit more steady as it extends so far out. The build style certainly leaves you with the impression that it's a relatively powerful and piercing shot that could come out from the cannon, and this rover style APC that we have that looks kind of like a bug has an extremely clean and solid look. The extension of the double arms with the wheels in the front is great, and the bug look of this style is definitely hit home a little bit harder when you take a look at the other robotic mechanical machine in front of it. The uniform dark tan also works in this model's favor. It makes it feel just a little bit more solid and also slightly more realistic, even though this is definitely a fantasy sci-fi based build. But if I say fantasy sci-fi, then this next one I think fits that just a little bit better. From MisterShramp, this is the Sorosuub V48 Senth Airspeeder. Quite a long name and quite a clean, chubby little snub-nosed speeder. Right off the bat, I'm very happy that they managed to make this have no studs on the underside showing. This is a uniform build from above and below, which makes it great for displaying. And stylistically, this is a wonderful little shape that makes up the nose of the speeder. There are some very subtle angles added to either side that lead towards the nose. So internally, I think there's a bit bit more complexity happening here than maybe what initially meets the eye, and the addition of those double little fins in the back just gives an extra bit of personality that drives this sort of Jetsons look home, I think, a little bit better. Now we have come on to the designer Frost, who is amazing at the February builds. This is day 16 for him. February is just like a weird abbreviation for February. People make different rover type builds, and Frost is, I think, the crown champion of doing this. I think maybe the official title of this, when you go through the description, is Professor C. Geiger's Fantabulous Traveling Exhibition of Inter-Galactic Rovers, and truly this is a Roverception style build. So it looks like sort of a traveling circus style sci-fi build with such a funny minifigure on the top with his little microphone, and inside each display cart are smaller little rover builds. I wouldn't be surprised if these rovers here are micros of different versions of builds maybe that he's done in the past. That feels like something that could be a possibility. But also the build for this much larger traveling train style rover is so cool with those brick-built wheels in the front. Somebody let me know where that giant windshield piece came from. I don't recognize it. And there's just something so funny and so completing about the mic, the MC man at the top of this train style rover. All right, this is going to be an interesting one. I believe it's all digital. From Ji Hyunju, this is the Lego Ferrari F1 concept machine. I think a lot of people might recognize this. And holy guacamole, if you don't like stickers, you probably wouldn't like a build like this. Though, of course, we're looking at a digital render. Everything here feels and looks a bit cleaner than maybe it would if this was a real physical Lego set. But when it comes to the actual proportions and the actual lines and curves, especially towards the back of this vehicle, Ji Hyunju did an excellent job bringing home the look of a sleek, fast, and very smooth looking race car. I'm usually not as familiar when it comes to immediate proportions when I check out F1s as opposed to other more contemporary cars that aren't in this circuit, but I have no doubt a huge amount of time and effort went into the creation of this build to really make it feel as accurate and as clean as possible. And all right, let's jump to a more fantasy style build. This is a vignette, it looks like. It's called Mr. Chong's Potion Shop by Sebastian bachorzewski. The stylized tile floor is an excellent detail, but really this is one of those builds that takes advantage of the interesting and intricate and overly detailed smaller minifigure pieces that you get from so many different playsets and makes use of them in terms of having them display pieces within a fantastical or exotic shop. This one being a potion shop. This one's a fun build just in terms of being able to recognize smaller pieces that you might remember from certain contemporary lines or even much older ones. And there's a lot of fun details to get lost in just in a relatively simple style build, yet visually it is still such an eye-catching little bit of work. We're jumping into the final two, and I feel like I've seen something similar come from Timothy Kachev in the past, but I could totally be wrong. This is such a funny one. The official title is What Has Become of Us, and this is part of a challenge build where the designer was tasked with having to build an object or living creature from one era which landed in another one. So there we go. We've got a rooster and a T-Rex, or at least the giant head of a T-Rex, and both of these builds are really impressive in their own way. Stylistically, they're actually built quite different, which is fun. When taking a look at the rooster first, you'll see that mostly smooth slope curving pieces and round tiles have made up the majority of this build, and it works so well because it's juxtaposed with the studded and porous face of a scaly giant T-Rex head. Also, the plates are attached at slight offset angles when it comes to the T-Rex, so the skin feels a little bit more real and it feels a little bit more loose, while the rooster is a super solid piece. There's hardly any gaps in any places, and that combined with such a smooth texture really makes these two elements pop out incredibly well. Personally, I think the face of the rooster is just one of the best. It's so good. The eye, I think we're looking at a dish piece with a Ninjago bottom cowl, round stud with a black bar through it, minifigure arm and hand, and yellow tooth piece for the beak. It's just, there's so much happening in that tiny little bit of space. I don't know what that red piece is. This guy is a flippin' genius. And let's check out the last build of the week. This is the Cherone GT from 3D supercarBricks. I have yet to see somebody really attempt a Cherone like this in system bricks at this size before, and perhaps if I have seen somebody do it before, I haven't seen somebody do it this well until now. That classic Cherone curve around the door is captured surprisingly fluidly with just harsh angled slope pieces. There's actually no curvy bits here. These are all harsher angles, but they're done in a way that, especially from afar and at this scale, it doesn't feel particularly angular. I'm a little bit sad that there aren't more detailed close-up pictures of this model, because I think a build like this definitely deserves closer looks, but 3D supercarBricks should be extremely proud of such a fun and such a clean looking system brick build. It's not easy to get shapes and angles like this at this scale for such a complex design for a car. And I guess I am done talking about top 10 mocks of the week. Remember guys, if you enjoy our content, you can always like or subscribe. Check out the links in the description below to all the different flickers of these designers. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time at BrickVault.